Okay, today I am going to tell you all about Valentine's. So, Valentine's Day is coming up, and it is definitely one of my favorite holidays, if not my favorite holiday. And I know people kind of give it grief because it's commercialized, but when you're celebrating love, I like that. So, I'm going to talk about all of these different gorgeous Valentines and a little bit about their history today. I'm Kelsey and I'm the antiquer, and as I showed you earlier, I'm going to be talking about Valentine's today. So I love Valentine's Day. I absolutely love all the old Valentines that you can find, and I wanted to just share a little bit of the history. So things like this, somewhere in the 18th century, Americans and Europeans started exchanging friendship cards, essentially Valentines, on Valentine's Day. And then later on, when the postage became something that they could afford and they were able to send Valentines using postage stamps in the later 19th century, they were able to do this a lot easier. So it just took off and people started sending Valentines because you could do it with a stamp. So things like this, with like the little mechanical part of it, is super cute, but it didn't come to be until much later when the printing press and manufacturing companies were able to do that. By the mid 1820s, over 200,000 Valentines had actually been circulated in London, which is really cool. And then, as technology advances, the availability advances, and more Valentines were exchanged. So some of the original Valentines were produced by Germany and Austria. This one says right on the back, you probably won't be able to see it, but right here, printed in Germany, and it is a very extravagant, like very detailed, beautiful Valentine. And you can see it like has these little parts that were once supposed to stand and kind of all come out like that. And all the cutting and embossing is really beautiful on that one. So the more detailed they were, obviously the more expensive they would be. This one's a similar one. It says printed in Bavaria, and it also has that like 3D effect when you fold it out. You can see on the back it says to Willis from Howard. So they exchanged Valentines. This one's also, I think I got a grouping of them at one point, and it must have been Willis's. To Willis Sullivan from Mary Alice, and this one was printed in Bavaria as well. And you can see how cute it is when it folds out like that, the little paper mechanism to make that happen. And something else that's interesting was that in the Victorian times they actually had a vinegar Valentine, and not many exist still, not many are in circulation. Because they didn't last very long, but they were kind of an insult card. So people would send a friend, or usually like guys would send their friends something that said, something that made fun of them or poked fun. Instead of a loving greeting for Valentine's, it was like a vinegar Valentine, which I thought was really interesting and will be something that I look for. 1913, Hallmark started making Valentines, so that was a little bit later in the scene. They came in and started making Valentines, and it obviously has continued from there. They've kind of owned that market. But before that, there was a lady named Esther Howland in about 1848, and she was the daughter of a stationery store in Massachusetts, and because of her affiliation with her father and her family, she was able to have access to printing these Valentines. So she created a lot of Valentines, sold way more than she ever anticipated selling, and just continued to grow year over year. So when she died later in the 1900s, she was actually called the mother of Valentines, or the mother of Valentine cards, which was kind of a neat honor to give her, as she dedicated her life to really building out the Valentine card mass production in America. This one is by Gibson, who was also a really popular Valentine card maker. And I love this one because it says, "Please choose me." And if you lift up her hat, there's a little thing for gum in there. So it was actually spearmint chewing gum. So it's a sweet little card. This one's really cute. It actually is like, it says, "To my Valentine," and it opens up and it's this little storybook inside. So that's a really neat one. Definitely would have cost more to produce, the little ribbon and the multiple pages. But this one is by, it doesn't say who made it, but it was made in the USA. Many different postcards that you could find that have been Valentines over the years. This one is one of my favorites. If you can see that her little arms move, and it says, "I want to muscle in and say, please be my Valentine," which is adorable. This one was also made in the US. 50% of all Valentines, they say, are bought 6 days prior to the holiday. So 6 days before the 14th is when most Valentine cards are purchased and sent in today's time, which is interesting. I also found that the most common person to receive a Valentine is a teacher, which makes sense because, you know, bringing Valentines to school and exchanging them. This one's super cute. This one was printed in Germany, probably not everyone's favorite card. And then you can find things like this today. This is just a reproduction of old Valentines. So the look of them and the nostalgic, you know, verses or poems or anything that they put on them it's just so cute that they're still sought after today, and I love seeing that they're still being produced. A fun fact that I did find, though, in researching this Valentine's Day history was a Italian city called Verona, where the site of Shakespeare Romeo and Juliet took place, still receives about 1,000 Valentines addressed to Juliet every single year. So kind of a neat thing to think about, that people are still sending those to that city. You enjoyed learning a little bit about Valentines. I love Valentines. I love sending them. I think it's a fun thing just to surprise someone that you know with a little token of love, appreciation. It goes a long way. So maybe try and send one this year to someone that you don't normally send a card to. Send them a Valentine and let them know that you love them.